This is the original and really the only crew of Chef's Table. I'm going to please bring Will Basanta, cinematographer, Adam Bricker, cinematographer, Brian McGinn, executive producer, and David Gelb, creator. I'm going to make it so I can see better.
Nice, thank you. What up, Cine Gear? Woo! Warm today.
I'm going to get so I can see you guys. I'm sure I just messed up the entire camera. You're good? Okay. It's my speciality. So, hold on a second. Get my notes. So, I just want to tell y'all a little bit about Chef's Table. It is the longest running TV series on Netflix, correct? That is
Yes.
correct, right? Yes. Okay. So,
yeah, we were on there when orange was the new black. We're that OG.
So, okay, so all my cards are out of order. This is great.
We have to vamp.
Yeah. Shout out to
Sorry.
Annette Sorelli,
Yeah.
OWC. What's up, girl?
Okay, here we go. David. Okay, I read that Chef's Table was inspired by your feature documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Oh my gosh, if you guys haven't seen that, it is amazing. You were just out of film school, correct? Ish. And can you talk about that time?
Sure. Well, it was an interesting time because that was when the Red camera had just come out.
Yeah.
And so it was a moment where I realized that, without any real money to pay a crew, I could borrow money from my family because I'm from that position of privilege, thankfully. And I was able to borrow money, get this camera that would allow you to shoot like it's planet Earth, basically, but without a crew. And in so doing, we struggled through these early iterations of Red where it took a minute to boot up, and this is not the case anymore.
This was pre-MX.
This is pre-MX sensor. This is the first build of Red.
Yeah, let it rip. It's okay.
And it was cool because you could shoot in a way that you could not shoot on any other camera like that. And it allowed me to make a thing that looked like a real movie, but without the resources normal. So it was Red and Macintosh and DVD burners.
Okay.
But your crew was just you and a translator, right?
That is correct, yeah. So I had a bunch of Velcro tape. I taped on sound mixing boxes and various other things to the Red. And we went out there and I shot this thing in this tiny sushi bar and having no idea if it would work or not, but just a belief that if I liked it, then maybe people would like it. And we kept working on it until it was reasonably releasable. And it did okay, and here we are, thankfully.
Well, I think that the story stayed with me. I can never order that egg thing ever without thinking of that movie, ever at sushi. Anyway, because of how often. So I feel like, and we'll go into detail, obviously, but so much of Chef's Table is about that journey, is whatever you were doing, it's so about the human.
Yeah, and I think, Chef's Table has kind of certainly taken a life of its own, thanks to having collaborators, which is amazing because I was very much alone and very scared working on Jiro Dreams of Sushi. But the thing that really stuck is the idea that here's a very passionate person who's doing something every day trying to be the best that he can and work, he has his family life, he worked so hard that he missed his kids growing up, and then it really became this like father-son story where then it became more about the character journey than about the food. And that's really that plus cinematography and music and stuff was sort of like the baseline. And then Brian and I teamed up where Brian knew all the characters and the chefs, and then we kind of built this show.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And brought in, Will I knew from college. Adam and Brian knew each other from
doing comedy shorts together.
Comedy,
really?
Yes. Nobody here wanted anything to do with documentaries until it happened. And is that fair?
Yeah, definitely fair.
Okay, cool. But we found out that you can do cool cinema things with documentaries, and we're glad to have been a part of that.
But I think the unlock that David made with Jiro was that the food became even more delicious the more you knew the character's journey.
Absolutely.
And that's why you like the egg, because you saw him struggle
so
and
much.
Talk about crying while he was making the egg.
Yes.
And I even included the shot of him dropping the egg, which he was very upset about.
Really?
Yeah, but he's Japanese, and his way of expressing that upsetness was kind of a grunt and a shaking, a nodding of his head. So we just went with it. And now he's has multiple restaurants, and that Nakazawa-san, who made the egg sushi, is now how many restaurants does he have? I mean, he's like a big restaurateur now in the U.S., and that came from a misunderstanding in translation where I said that an American will pay $10,000 for a single sushi meal. And at the time, it was $1,000. And I remember watching the footage and being like, oh, that's not right. But it was too late. Nakazawa had already left the restaurant and embarked to
It worked
America,
out for him regardless.
But he's still doing well. I'm sure that with sake, he could probably get close to that.
I always wonder. So you, Adam, you never really. How did you go about this? What was your intention when you first started?
Yeah, well,
this?
I think I had never. Will and I jumped on the first season, and we alternated episodes, volume 1 of Chef's Table. And prior to that, I had never shot food. Will, had you had any experience?
No, I'd never.
I had barely
So
shot.
neither one of you had.
I had barely shot documentaries.
Great hiring by the two of us.
No idea what happened, but I don't know. We definitely we weren't. Our mindset wasn't that it was going to be a cooking show or even a documentary. We were really approaching it from a cinematography perspective, just very filmically, and trying to make these little movies that had intention behind the filmmaking, intention that matched the chef's intention. And yeah, we kind of just set out very naively to shoot this thing in the most cinematic way possible, not really understanding the limitations of documentary filmmaking. And I don't know, is that an accurate description, Will?
Yeah, I think that's all correct. I think we were trying to approach it from a narrative filmmaking standpoint rather than a old school sort of fly on the wall doc standpoint, and that mostly came from David's work on Jiro.
But matching intention, you say that matching intention. That's hard.
Well,
Every story, every time. I mean, that's got to be hard to connect that and arc that every time with the.
Yeah, I think that these are great stories, and we have wonderful directors that are able to really lay out for us as cinematographers what the narrative of an episode is going to be.
Yes.
And that allows us to make choices as cinematographers in a documentary setting that are intentional. What lenses are we going to shoot for this particular episode? How are we going to light the kitchen? When we're picking scenes, where does the scene fall in the episode? And maybe we pick a time of day that conveys an emotion. And we're only really able to do that because of Brian and David and how they approach these things with great intention, and they prep them really well and are just so knowledgeable about the narrative.
Well, the just hearing the chefs talk, how much footage and interviews, how many hours go into talking and recording, because it's so much of it's voiceover. In a sense, you just hear them telling their story. How much of that?
I mean, it's different for every filmmaker. I think it's worth shouting out our two other EPs on the show, Andrew Freed, who I think really, when David and I started, we were more long-form documentary folks and used to being around subjects for a really long period of time. So in addition to jumping into this, trying to shoot a documentary at this style, the time frame we went, how long did you shoot Jiro for?
Well, Jiro was a process of 1 month of shooting, 6 months of editing and despair, 1 month of pickups, and then another 3 months of editing. So when we were first starting this process, we were to Netflix, we were like, okay, cool. So you can have the first season in about 6 years from now. And that'll be fine. And then Andrew Freed had come from Iconoclasts, and which I thought was was a pretty nice.
Iconoclasts was the
series. It was the standard.
It was the gold standard for a doc series that had any aesthetic.
Yes. And so Andrew helped us work through a methodology of allowing us to have the documentary feature feeling and letting, the lenses that we wanted to use and all the kind of things that made kind of the DNA of Jiro into a television show. and put us with Danny O'Malley, who was our other executive producer, who became our lead story producer as well, and or he started as lead story producer and then became executive producer.
But Andrew really taught us, okay, how do you take a couple of months like David shot on Jiro?
How do you stitch
do
up
that
the
in
patient?
8 days?
He said, how do you stitch up the patient?
Yeah. And so for us, that was a big challenge in the first year, was like, how do you checkerboard a schedule for a person's life story and do it in 8 days? Because it becomes this kind of hybridized thing between television and documentary.
Yeah.
And it's not like David's discovery process on Jiro, we don't have the time to do that. So that's where we have to go in kind of knowing the story. And then we do between 10 and 15 hours of interviews with the main chef. We discovered that you have to exhaust them.
Yeah.
You have to gain their trust and then exhaust them out their
Let
PR
them
story.
break them down. They go through all their PR stories. We smile and nod through the first interview.
And then most of them, I feel like, quit when it gets hard.
Well, the first one, the first episode, and the great story of the first episode was that, the first episode I directed. So the first episode, Brian had a delightful time in Australia with Ben Shuri, and everything seemed to go really well.
A lot of crying.
A lot of crying, and I was like, oh, I can't wait.
Both Ben Shuri and Brian.
Yeah,
during
I
the
was like, I can't wait to make my chef cry. And so we start doing our interview, and I'm like, okay, yeah, so I'll just kind of lay down the biography story. So tell me about your parents. And immediately it was just like, what is this? Like, what are you asking questions for? And oh, no, okay, sorry, just tell me about your father. And he's like, okay. He was like, no. And how did you meet your wife?
Massimo
He was like,
Bottura.
No. This is Massimo Bottura, who is, we've resolved it.
Yeah.
And we're best friends and everything. But he was not used to like personal questions being asked at that earliest stage. Yeah. And so then we learned that it's like, take your time, build the trust, and share a lot of yourself, and then it becomes like a dialogue. Yeah. Like Brian knew that he would cry with Ben, and that's why that episode is so beautiful.
I remember. So I interviewed Ben the first day. He's in the middle of telling me a story, I believe, about cleaning plates and getting dirt under his nails, and he started crying. Oh. And then, for some reason, I was so locked in on him that I started to cry. Yeah. And then the next day, we were interviewing. We do these talking heads that kind of give us context for who each chef is, and the talking head. It was a lovely man named Tony Tan. He started crying very early on in the interview, and the entire crew looked at me and was like,
what are we doing?
F is this? This is so weird.
It's a room full of empaths all feeding each other delicious emotion.
Yeah. So, but I think over the years, we've realized that because of the schedule that we're on, it's the first 3 days, everyone's on the same team in general, and like they're so excited to be there, and then you hit a period of time where we're asking so much of the team and the chef and the restaurant. Day 4 or so, it becomes, oh God, you're kind of looking into the distance going, there's too much of this left, and then you become best friends again by the end.
There's also I think there's so many parallels between being a chef and running a fine dining restaurant and working in film. Like the chef is the equivalent of a director, so they're just not used to people questioning them, or that becomes challenging. And then also, I think just like as a human, it's tough to trust somebody else with telling your life story. Yeah,
I think so. But the chefs, there's a lot of admiration that we have for these chefs because they. Like, yes, we're like the directors, and then we make a thing, but we make a thing and it comes out. Like, imagine being a director and you have to direct the finale of the movie every day for the rest of your life, if you're so lucky, and your restaurant doesn't close, and then you lose it, and then everybody forgets that it happened, and it just disappears from history. Right. And that stress and all the jobs that are on the line for it is incredible. And so and that's one of the reasons the show works, is because the stakes are so high. Yeah. So high for these chefs. And we try to show them how seriously we take it. We take it seriously. We bring in the best that we have and make a big investment to tell their story faithfully and beautifully.
I want you to talk about perfectionism.
It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
I would say. Perfectionism, real perfectionism is the understanding that the perfection is not real and it doesn't exist. And so you aim for a high ideal and then you walk towards it, and sometimes taking steps forward and steps back, but you just keep trying to reach the ideal. Yeah. And but it's a dangerous thing because sometimes you can want to be so perfect that you don't release the thing or it never happens because you are so afraid not attaining, but the understanding that nothing is perfect and nobody is perfect is essential for a successful application of perfection. And that perfectionism, because perfection is not real. So Jiro, he's a perfectionist because he knows that he will never be perfect. And that's how it works. And you can't let don't let perfect get in the way of good. Don't not do the thing because it can't be perfect. It's that fear can be paralyzing.
Well, and Jiro's taking a step every day. I'm better, a little bit better today. I'm a little bit better tomorrow. I'm a little bit better. And that's very different than never going into tomorrow.
Exactly.
Because it's not perfect.
Yeah. So the knowledge that it will never be perfect and the acceptance of that.
Is there a parallel with your process in making? Do you guys push?
Well, I think that's why we're all still making the show 10 years later, is that, these are fun to make. They're really challenging to make. There's a lot of responsibility telling someone's life story, and with just the limits of yourselves as filmmakers, but also the schedule and all the things we've talked about. It's really fun. I find it fun as a cinematographer to keep doing these and keep aspiring for each one to be better than the next. And I think that challenge is sort of what keeps us going.
Let's also talk about squeezing into kitchens and real quick and lighting and just the physical effort on top of all of what we've talked about. Will, you start.
Squeezing into kitchens. Yeah, we've been in some very, very tight kitchens. I think in Paris, in Alain Passard's kitchen, that was they're live kitchens, and it's tiny, and so we usually go in and do a scout, and then we will relight. Often we will relight a lot of the existing light that's already there.
Yeah.
In addition to any kind of standing film lights we might use on the day. But it's nice. We'll usually do a blanket relight of the kitchen, and then ideally we can come in and almost shoot a quasi fly on the wall sort of thing at any time.
If the flies are giant human-sized flies.
Right. Yeah. And then we're I don't know. It's like a dance. It is like a dance.
One is a great example because some of the chefs have kitchens that are ideal for this. Grant Achat's nice big kitchen, right?
It was also about to go under construction, so we were allowed to screw. This was pre-LED. We were screwing Kinos into the ceiling.
Oh gosh.
So fun.
And the Trois Gros family, fat classic, giant kitchen. You can run steady. It's looks like it's almost like a studio stage.
Oh, wow.
Alain Passard is imagine this size stage, but a maze of extremely hot and dangerous surfaces,
sharp knives,
and 12 to 13 other chefs, and
no shared, and they're speaking in French,
and they're all speaking in French, and they and again, one bad review can destroy their lives. So we everybody that could operate remote controls or remote focus would be lined up alongside and hoping to keep that reception, unless we had to go down to the basement where the dungeon downstairs where they would make the pastry, and then it was dropping cables around, and the whole thing was a fun kind of puzzle.
Right. Well, because these restaurants are functioning at such a high level, and they are generally almost exclusively not shutting down for us because their tables are booked months or years in advance sometimes.
And
so
they'll go out of business if they go shut down. So.
And then gear wise, we started the show in 2014, and I think we started on the Epic. It wasn't, we had graduated from the Red One, and thank goodness, because it was a fraction of the size, and so we were able to get a small camera body in there. I think it's fun because a lot of these...
Solid state memory of that.
How lucky you guys are.
I know. How did you do it, David?
I don't know. I would vamp for 1 minute every time the camera would randomly turn off and overheat.
Oh dear.
1 minute startup time.
16 gigabyte CF cards.
Sitting there with an 84-year-old man who does not have a lot of time to waste on this. He's alive and well and 99 years old now.
Shock mounts for the hard drives, dropping frames left and right. What was I saying?
You were
tasting. Epic.
Yes.
Something I would add is that in addition to a smaller camera body, we shoot the show on primes, which I think if Will and I had shot many documentaries prior to this, we might have made a slightly different choice, but we were really trying to stay true to the intentionality and making this as cinematic as possible. Yeah. And I think one of the side things that we didn't anticipate is that being on a fixed focal length sort of forces you to dance with the chef. You are trying to be a fly in the wall in the sense you're not trying to get in their way, but you also
But we get in their way.
you get in their way, and you need to move and find the right angle. And I think it just sort of like those gear choices that we made early on, quickly switching over to like an easy rig and shooting on primes with diopters and kind of hanging the hanging the camera low over the dish. I think like those really shaped the visual identity of the show.
I do too. What about the shooting 4K and all the early days of Netflix and the mandate?
I mean, it was fabulous. I think like, prior to this show, I would often have to make an argument with production or with the studio about what resolution we were going to shoot. And here we had a streamer that was releasing their content in 4K, so it wasn't even a question. And they've been just like so supportive from a technological perspective. They were one of the first streamers to switch to an HDR finish and allowed us to go back through our catalog of early seasons and recolor and retime all of our episodes.
Oh, that's so great.
Finish, which was really fun to reflect on that and improve on that. And yeah, Netflix has been great from a technology standpoint.
I love that. And there's a uniform look through 10 years. Does that come from story? What's the heart of the uniform?
I think it's number one is like the colorist Shane Reed, who has touched every single episode of the show. So even though we've had, 6 or 8 different cinematographers and a number of different directors, certainly there's a language for the show that exists and that people are aware of. But I think that Shane touching every single image that we put out means that there's always someone in the look that knows exactly what that DNA is and how to create it.
No tinting.
No tinting, but also
tinting now.
Also
No,
the crew continuity. I mean, Will and I have been there from the beginning, but when other cinematographers were shooting episodes, they were often camera assistants that first season, and we were promoting people. Charlie Panion, who's here today.
Charlie's here.
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie, how many Chef's Table episodes have you worked on? 30 episodes. So that's like
Crazy.
A year.
Yeah.
How many days is that? 30? That's 300 days at least. Nice. Thank you. You're welcome. Great work.
Were there any references? Like I in one of your interviews, you guys mentioned the Paolo Sorrentino's. What was that wonderful movie? Il Divo
and Grande Bellezza. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think our early references were David's work on Jiro, and it was trying to like sort of take what David had done as a one-man band to the next level.
Yeah.
And sort of, David really introduced a high-resolution macro photography and slow motion into like the visual language of food. And Will and I were sort of just riding on what David had already done. I think what's fun about working on a show for so many seasons and always trying to improve and not repeat yourself is that once you've sort of figured out what the show is, you have an opportunity to break it apart and do something different.
That's nice.
What are some examples of that?
So when those two references that you're talking about in the pastry season of the show, we did an episode in Sicily, and the movies that we were watching were all the Paolo Sorrentino movies.
Yeah.
And we wanted to try to figure out how could we move the camera in that kind of classic Italian way.
It's a Luca Bagazzi.
Yeah, totally. So we actually, a similar kind of beginner's naivete, I think, trying to find the sense of that again. We ended up coming up with this kind of cockamamie scheme to shoot Oliver Verite on Steadicam. And we found a Steadicam operator, Joel Marsh, who's amazing and now works with Adam on Hacks as well.
He was both talented and willing to do it.
For the rate and the difficulty of the job in Sicilian summer.
And physically strong
Very
to
strong.
carry the
like
thing.
an ox.
Yeah, he like carry the thing.
Yeah, what does that
not
look
supposed to
like?
do it.
I mean,
It looks like he's carrying the thing for a very long time.
Oh.
It's a Steadicam and it's heavy, and he's like can do it. And I don't know anyone else who carries the thing like he does. And he's not like he's also
smaller
compact
guy.
enough for the kitchen, and yet with boundless energy.
Yeah, I
and
mean, 'cause
talent.
on
His intuition is amazing also.
On season 1, I feel like we'd be in Europe, and like it would be a very old school Steadicam guy would come on for like we'd get a day of Steadicam, and
They'd maybe want to do like a 5-minute take,
right.
and then
Yeah, and then they can play in the
it
whole
would take
And
forever,
Joel can
or
go
we
for a
would be afraid we
whole
might
tasting
kill
menu.
this
He is
person.
out there operating. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we'd be like, Joel, can you go down this hill in 104-degree weather, following the gentleman down to the almond tree, then drift around as they pick the almonds off the tree and try them. And he'd be like, yeah, sure, okay.
No problem.
So we kind of are constantly trying to add new visual ideas or styles, and then now that Steadicam language has become part of the DNA of the show as well, right? So like we're always trying to add things to it and then carry it forward, and the show becomes hopefully richer as a result of it.
And also the production design that they started doing around the dishes and stuff, like some ideas developed, making the not just having to
that's
film the
interesting.
dishes only on the table setting, but in certain hyper-real situations, like I think what is it? What's the one with the tiles in the circle?
Oh, we did for Franco Pepe, which is
Pepe.
a pizza. We created all these geometric tiles that accentuated the shape of the pizza. We just shot an episode in Spain where the chef makes a lot of seafood dishes, and we shot the food symphony over what looks like deep lapping black water, but is in fact a kiddie pool that we filled liter by liter. Carrying it from the
Yeah, because we're doing all of this, and there is no production designer. It's just it's us. It's Kate, my wife, who's here helping sort the tiles.
and Jessica, my wife, who's an art director. So she's not here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that David had done such an amazing job in Jiro of this kind of hyperreal. It almost took the best version of what the diner's experience could be, right? And that was how the food was presented. And I think over time we've tried to go like into a crazier, more surreal,
more representative of maybe what the chef's point of view or what the region is, or just trying to like ground it in the story.
And it's another challenge for us.
Yeah, it feels like you're kind of expansive and not afraid.
Oh, they're the tiles. That pizza is delicious.
There it is.
That pizza is so good. It's actually
Good job,
so good.
Jill.
It's subtle, but it's dope. Like that didn't exist before.
So did you guys with the lots of high speed?
Yeah.
Did that come from Phantom or did that come from Red?
No, red.
It's all Red, right?
Yeah. We
And
shoot
as we got
Can't afford Phantom.
faster and faster, like with the
there we go.
That's
Yeah. No, I think that you guys have always dictated how slow we go. So.
right.
I'd like to say it's some creative choice, but
Do you
no,
work
it's
for Red?
it's
I
Red.
do.
Are we doing internal NDs?
Yes,
we already have an
Yes,
internal
please.
ND
On
on
which
the
camera?
a
Oh my God.
Raptor XL. What one
shot
you
the-
use?
We
Oh,
did.
on
You
Hacks.
better believe it, David.
You
We
use
should.
that on Hacks.
Yeah,
And-
I can't. change
Raptor
the
XL.
Mathbox anymore.
Yes, but
We used it on the
recently-
Jose episode.
Recently,
also.
we've done it on Chef's Table. The internal NDs are a game changer
Okay,
for
great.
the show.
That's cool.
Yeah. No problem. Consider it done.
There is something that we can't make it too easy, because there is something that is nice about when you're shooting a documentary. There's something that's nice about a filter change. There's something that's nice about a lens change. It gives Joel a minute to breathe, the Steadicam operator. But then also I think like for Brian and I, like we're often during that time sort of reflecting on what we've captured in the scene and there is
There's
Joel.
Joel. Look at
That's
him.
so nice.
Fucking rip.
This doesn't go off the rails now. It's so look at him.
Yeah.
Low center of gravity.
Effortless. He'd be a good point guard also.
In this one, he's close to an aquarium, but we put him next to a 1,200-degree open wood flame and had him dance around that in a restaurant we did in Australia. And every take, there would be salt kind of crusting on the edge of his face, like he was slowly baking.
He's an athlete.
We've also probably melted several dozen map boxes
Yeah.
on this show.
I think that's
Lots
you.
of
Will.
I have personally.
Yeah, Will's insurance
Charlie.
rate is a little different.
Hey, while we're going,
That's not true.
if you guys have questions, raise your hand and we'll pepper those in. There's one in the back. Real quick.
I have a question on your T&E package that you're using for this. What type of units, how many people, those things?
Yeah, it's different episode to episode. It's a position that we typically are hiring locally. We're traveling camera department. Focus pulling on this job is so hard. So, as Charlie can attest. So we travel camera department, and then we're hiring Jeannie locally. And on my episodes, I'll do a package for the kitchen, but it really depends on what the kitchen is. It might be some tubes in the ceiling, or if there's a window that's properly positioned, maybe an HMI coming through that. We'll do a little bit of work in the kitchen, and then it'll be sky panels, some LEDs with a basic grip package for the interviews. It's typically like book lights, motivated by natural light. And then we'll rent additional gear for the food symphony, but we've been kind of getting crazy with those. So it really depends on what the objective is with the symphony.
Can we talk about Food Symphony for a minute? I love Food Symphony, and I love the music, and I want you to talk a little bit about music before we do more questions.
Okay. The Food Symphony idea came from Yamamoto-san from Jiro Dreams of Sushi, who was like the one who was the narrator, kind of. And then we also use that thing where we always have an expert, somebody that can apply context and say great things about the chef so they don't have to say it. And they do. We edit it out. Yeah. They... Yamamoto says that the tasting course of the omakase at Jiro-san's restaurant is a concerto. It has movements, it has an ebb and a flow to it, it has kind of like these acts in it, and then we get to, it was very easy to know how to edit that scene then, because you just do that. And that became one of those DNA markers, like, every episode has this food symphony. And it's like a climax, it's a culmination. And the great thing about Chef's Table is that every single dish is always connected to a major moment in the chef's life. It's like a bite. Each dish, we choose the dishes that, of course, are delicious and look cool, but have a biographical significance. And so then, and just much like when you see the egg sushi, right? We've now infused all these dishes with meaning and heart, and then you see it all kind of come together, and it's like this journey, this symphony through the chef's life via the beautiful food. And I think it's also the most fun part to shoot for myself and the crew, because that's when everybody gets to taste everything. And so, we put chopsticks and spoons and whatever on the tool belts, and we have like some outtakes where you can see how fast a chocolate souffle can disappear. And,
yeah. Absolutely. Now, the last episode you did an 8K, not the season used 8K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian and I were tasked with doing a Jamie Oliver episode for this latest Legends season, and it was really exciting. I've long wanted to do a TV chef on the show. And we knew that the episode would have a ton of archival, and the decision to go large format 8K was to make sure that we had a really nice, healthy contrast between Jamie's archival television work and our work on the show. So we shot.
And it was the first time we shot large format lenses as well.
Large format, yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
More questions? Oh, right there.
From like a director standpoint, I'm curious, like your method on carrying a 15-hour conversation, and then also like your process for like researching and choosing a chef as well, and how that factors into like the questions you'll ask.
Well, I'll just say that the 15 hours is over the 10-day period. So we take breaks. But I like that idea is like kind of crazy. So yes, there are breaks in between, and we come back to it, and then it also comes like in the building of the relationship. So it's like after you've done three-hour conversation, and the last one you can kind of go a little extra hard. And Brian, I'll let you answer the second part of the question.
As far as the casting of the show, what we're always trying to do is to find people whose life stories are diverse from each other, right? I think early on in the show, because we've gone through an evolution making the show over 10 years, early on, the show was almost exclusively 3 Michelin star chefs in fine dining kitchens who had worked in Spain or France. That was like the creme de la creme of the food world. And
the tasting course felt necessary.
We felt like we had to choose these people with those credentials to justify why we were making a TV show about them. And as the 10 years have passed, we've realized, the food world has so many incredible stories that are relatable not only to people that eat in the fine dining restaurants of the world, but also we made this episode about the South Korean monk who doesn't even have a restaurant, right? She cooks for her monastery. And we have made episodes about barbecue and pizza, right? So we're trying to cast stories about people whose actual personal journeys are really compelling and have something to say to all of us, to our audience, and we kind of use ourselves as the bar. Because when we started making the show, we were 28. We were trying to figure out how do you find sustainability in this kind of a life. And chefs, like Adam said, have this similar kind of creative drive with no structure or ladder to climb, really, that's clear. And so we choose people whose journeys excite us and feel like there are resonant themes that people can take away when they watch the episode.
Yeah, and passion. Passion is the unifying thread. through all of our chefs, and even in street food, which was like taking this to the extreme. We had 3 seasons of a show called Street Food on Netflix. Each one, there's Latin America, Asia, and United States, and like anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great. It's Ratatouille.
I'm just Who is it? Jose Andres said, "We can do magical things with nothing if we give it the love it deserves." I loved that.
So that has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with food and nothing to do with food.
Yes.
Which I think is what we're always searching for and trying to create is it's a food show and not a food show at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a people show.
You know, I was had a really busy mind, and I just was like sitting there like, oh, I'm gonna watch something, and I thought, oh, I'll watch Chef's Table. I gotta talk to these guys, and immediately it centered me. It was really had a profound effect, and I just got calmed down. I thought, oh, I like this show. This calms me down, and I think it's because it's about humanity. It just really, and the music's so beautiful, and I couldn't get any of it on Shazam. I was super frustrated. There's some really beautiful music. I was like, I can't get it. More questions? Right there, the woman with the glasses.
For Adam, I noticed on this last episode of Hacks on season, I think episode 10, it sort of has Chef's Table feel to it. I was wondering, did that come after reading the script?
Repeat the question.
The question was about Hacks, which is my side gig for Chef's Table, and about an episode 10. You're referring to the Singapore. Yeah, I think a lot of what that was a really fun and challenging episode to make. The only person from my crew that I was allowed to bring with me was Charlie. And a lot of the lessons that I learned on Chef's Table about, working with new people and doing a lot with a little were really applicable to that. So thank you.
Yeah, I've just noticed some of the shots were very similar to Chef's Table.
Awesome.
Same DP.
And
Thank you.
You mentioned trying so many different styles and varieties. Why do you stick with red?
We do, right? Do we?
Yeah, we do. Well, Will, you've also shot some episodes on
I've
Venice.
shot an episode on
Venice. I think
Well, I just found out about the variable NDs, so.
we're back.
I know. We need to
back.
bring you into red, David.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's ever called me from Red, even though I made the doc about, the first doc on Red. Anyway, sorry.
No,
Go
it's
back.
a
You
good
go.
question. I'm not.
Yeah.
I said this earlier. I'm not the most. I don't consider myself to be the most technical of DPs, and I'm definitely not a camera nerd. When I was first starting out, much like David, I graduated film school, and I bought a red one with Charlie again and another friend. We called it 3 Guys in a Red.
Aww.
Really cute.
3 Guys, 1 Red.
3 Guys, 1 Red.
Oh.
Red also, shortly after that, like a couple years in, it was pretty successful. We rented it to other productions and used it on our own, and then Red sent us a cease and desist to stop using the word Red.
That's so chill.
I
So we
didn't
had
know
to
that.
switch it to
So
3GR, but now I'm on this panel, so who's winning? I don't know. Maybe we all are. I've always just sort of felt about cameras like, just shooting on Red since I started as a cinematographer, it has become second nature. And it's just one of the things that I don't want to think about when I'm working. I want to be thinking about stories. I really believe that the most impact that you have on an image is through lensing. So I test a ton of lenses. But when we're out in the field shooting, I just know how to use the camera so well. And also, I think it's the best camera in the world. So
Thank you.
that's why.
The hat, he's waving his hat. I have to answer it.
So question,
And then-
how are you planning your sequence shots with the on-screen talent and also with your gear? Are you limiting your gear? Are you shooting multicam? Are you having camera prep with a different lens pack or anything like that? Or are you interrupting?
Every director and team does it very differently. So I actually think we could each tell you how we do it in 30 seconds, maybe. Adam and I start every prep I do an outline of the chef's story. Then we brainstorm. I tell it to Adam like a narrative story, like a little mini podcast in person. Then we start brainstorming scene ideas. We location scout. And then we stop and start, and we do maybe 3 or 4 passes. Always with the learned knowledge of the last 10 years of what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. We try to not overshoot. and then we've generally figured out, even within each scene, where we're switching to slow motion, which kind of becomes like in the language that David started with Jiro, that becomes the trigger point where music starts in a scene, right? So we're quite technical in the way that we approach each scene and shoot in that way.
Also, often it's a tasting menu, or even if it's just not a tasting menu, it's a restaurant. The dish is coming out multiple times. It's fun operating. You get into a rhythm with the kitchen, and okay, we didn't get that, but we know they're firing another one, and we need to pick up this piece. But then I think on our episodes, Brian's right. Like I want them to be as much like a movie as possible. So we're doing takes. We're like making sure we get the pieces that we need to tell the story.
Gentleman with the glasses.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So the cinematography is very poetic when it's speaking a lot about slow motion. So what frames are you shooting and what global shutter? Are you doing 90 and 60 or?
I mean, I think we've shot it probably almost every fathomable frames per second.
Your ones are what, 96 and
we do
48?
a lot of. I mean, it depends. Honestly, a lot of 100 in Europe because of the hertz there, and 120.
It's dealing with flicker. It's dealing with the camera limitations, and we don't get frame blendy over 180 degree shot. I mean, I like a nice crisp frame. Remember when you shot the sushi for Nikki Nakayama? And it was too blendy.
It was tough. I got in trouble. I think
he also was tinting things, but he taught me about mixing color temperatures, which was really great. So thank you for that.
Welcome. When David says tinting, he one of our big fights in the beginning in the color session. Brian and I had shot an episode in Sweden, and we had perpetual daylight, and so we would be shooting late into the night, and the light would be extremely cool, and then he had just a wonderful, warm, cozy, almost firelit feeling kitchen, and so there's just absolutely beautiful color contrast, and David was really insistent that everything be the same color temperature with no tint.
Color. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't look like it's like a cable or a basic network drama for the scenes in Mexico where it's all orange. They put the orange filter on it.
Yeah, that was my intention. Was trying to make it as basic
honestly,
cable.
But it taught me. I think that it was really. I think that's what I'm saying is I learned something because by having the change, it was good. But it felt like too orange to me inside. But then I realized that I was wrong, and it's all great.
Note taken.
There's a question in the back.
There is fear. You're afraid to do new things sometimes, and I was scared.
Yep. Go ahead. Were the lens consistent?
Season 1 was all on Cooke S4s, and then after that we moved to a combination of Leica glass, sometimes Summicron, sometimes Summilux. But I think the vast majority of it.
And then we've really enjoyed shooting on the Leica glass, I think, and have played around with different lenses and that Leica offers. We've also tried to experiment a bit. Brian and I just shot an episode that was set both in Philadelphia and in Thailand, and so we shot the Philadelphia stuff in the traditional chef's table language with spherical Summicrons, and then for the Thailand work, which we wanted to feel like an adventure and like a sort of like a cinematic memory, we shot anamorphic. So I think that's really like I said before with the question earlier, I think like lenses are one of the key ways you're impacting the image, and I think as the show has gone on, we've tried to experiment more.
Have you used the Raptor X? Have you done the global shutter?
I think yes, we have. We did on the Jamie.
Flicker on the global.
No, the global shutter, and then also we got approval from Netflix to shoot. Shutter? We were so stupid. We shot 25 frames.
Can anybody elaborate on what the global shutter is and how it not flickers?
I have to do it.
Yeah. Or
all right, so
will we have a
Charlie, you want to?
I don't know. It's actually.
I don't know how it does it. I don't care how it does it, but it does. What
it does. It's actually magical because you.
There's Andy.
Andy, the globe. I don't know how they're doing it technologically, but instead of having multiple scan lines across an image, it's a single frame like a film shutter. So it makes motion, especially fast motion, really quite wonderful, and no motion blur.
Crisp frames.
Yes.
I'm very old.
That's why
I don't know
brought it
how
up.
technology
Crisp frames,
works
yeah.
anymore.
Crisp frames.
Okay, crisp.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. One right here.
advice can you give to like working in these live working environments where you're trying to capture the best image, but also not be in the way?
Put the camera on the knife side.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, get great. The question is about how you.
Human beings.
I don't know. I've just always felt like you had to force your way in there, right? Like and find the right angle and.
Yeah, and you earn the trust. You learn the way that they move, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And then also having an amazing crew. First off, having ACs that can pull and get it right on the first. I mean, it's very difficult. We're shooting at like 1.4 to T-stop, like whatever, right? And so you have like a millimeter, and Charlie can talk about this, and he has the trauma of, that you have no margin of error whatsoever. But then also having like kind of a good crew that can immediately kind of come in, switch the lenses, they have that language, and then, you dance with the chefs and all of that.
Can I add that also, like, watching these guys work, the one thing that I think they might not necessarily say is that they are willing to stick it out and go in there, even if it might be annoying to the chef for a moment, right? And so I think sometimes there's trepidation about, like, even as a director, I'll be like, oh, no, we'll figure it out some other way, right? And Adam is so good, and I'm sure Will is exactly the same way, because there's no other way to do it. Like, you do have to just go, I'm getting this, and you need to let me get it.
Yeah, and they're willing to hold that discomfort. And they're not afraid of the chef being a little bit mad at them, because they know how much happier they're going to be when they see the better episode. And Brian and I agree with Brian. I'm so afraid of being disliked that I cannot, and Will just has to like go into the kitchen, just do it. And it's really hard.
We have time for one more question in the back there.
Did you guys watch from the show, documentary now show, Juan Likes Chicken and Rice? What was your reaction to that? How did it make you feel about how you guys shoot the show and how they replicated that?
It's the greatest single honor of my life, to be honest. And I was like in shock, because first off, it means that your documentary is noticeable and is memorable enough that even though it's within a small niche of documentaries, like that, being part of that canon is like amazing. And then second, you have two of the greatest comedians in the world, comedic minds in the world, who are committing like a lot of time and energy to make fun of your thing. And then they also go to the crew that around you, like, what was your reaction? They came to you and asked you how to do it.
Yeah, they reached out with like a bunch of technical questions, and I was just
way.
They go for
deeply honored. And I think they just did an incredible job. I think, like, for me, it was The Simpsons, and like that was insane.
That's
they didn't reach out with any technical questions.
No, they didn't.
But they nailed it, I think.
But they
nailed
did a
it.
good
They
job.
nailed it.
Yeah, but the one like that was like so amazing, and I thought it was like really good and touching actually, and it was really nice. Yeah. Sometimes chicken is like, it's fucking fantastic.
Now, I haven't seen it, so I meant to show this but I really want to show the credit sequence real quick before we leave. Do you mind if I?
Yep.
Can you roll that?
Roll the clip.
Roll the clip. And turn the lights down so we can see.
Do we want any context, David? Do you want to provide context?
The opening credit sequence is it sets the stage. It has this kind of classical music feeling. It was very fun to cut. I love opening credits.
This is Chef's Table. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank
it's
you so
amazing.
much. Thank you.
It's just